Did you know that one of America's most groundbreaking comedians discovered his greatest punchline wasn't delivered from a stage, but whispered in a prayer? You'll never believe how a Christian military academy student named Bryant Moss became Preacher Moss, the Muslim comedian who turned his own faith conversion into comedy gold. Breaking. While most comedians mine their childhood trauma for laughs, this performer found his most transformative material in the most unexpected place. His journey from Baptist Christianity to Islam at just 20 years old. But what could possibly drive a young stand-up comedian to trade Sunday service for Friday prayers? And how did he turn this spiritual revolution into the backbone of his entire career? Growing up in a Maryland suburb, Bryant Moss seemed destined for a conventional Christian life. Raised in the Baptist tradition, he was sent to a local military academy for his education, where discipline, order, and unquestioning faith were supposed to shape him into a model young man. Yet even as a teenager, Moss displayed the same questioning spirit that would later make him a masterful comedian. He couldn't accept simple answers to complex questions. His natural curiosity about life, religion, and human nature led him to start performing sketch comedy at just 17 years old, using humor as his way of exploring the world's contradictions. But while his classmates focused on military drills and biblical studies, what was driving this young performer to seek answers beyond the faith of his childhood? By his early 20s, Moss had begun making his way to comedy clubs, trading the structured environment of military academy for the chaotic world of late-night entertainment. Stand-up comedy offered him something his Christian upbringing couldn't: a space to question everything openly, to challenge assumptions, and to explore uncomfortable truths through laughter. The comedy circuit became his real education, exposing him to diverse perspectives, different walks of life, and questions he'd never considered in church. Every night on stage was a theological debate disguised as entertainment, and every laugh was evidence that humor could be a bridge between different worldviews. But how did this environment of constant questioning and exploration set the stage for the most important decision of his life? In 1988, at the age of 20, everything changed for Bryant Moss. While pursuing his comedy career and questioning his inherited faith, he encountered Islam through fellow performers and diverse audiences in the comedy world. Unlike the Christianity of his youth, Islam presented him with answers that satisfied both his intellectual curiosity and his spiritual longing. The religion's emphasis on direct communication with God, its logical approach to theology, and its comprehensive guidance for daily life resonated with a young man who had spent years questioning conventional wisdom. The decision to convert wasn't made lightly. It represented a complete transformation of identity, worldview, and life direction. But what specific aspects of Islam spoke so powerfully to a comedian whose entire career was built on challenging the status quo? Converting to Islam as a stand-up comedian in 1988, America presented unique challenges that most converts never face. How do you maintain comedic authenticity while respecting religious principles? How do you make audiences laugh when you're worried about committing sins of the tongue? How do you perform in environments filled with alcohol, profanity, and morally questionable content while trying to live according to Islamic teachings? Moss faced the fundamental question that would define his entire career. Could he be both a faithful Muslim and a successful comedian? Or would he have to choose between his newfound faith and his artistic calling? The answer would revolutionize not just his career, but the entire landscape of American Muslim comedy. One of Preacher Moss's most beloved comedy routines centers on how he revealed his conversion to his Christian parents. Too nervous to announce his religious transformation directly, he developed a brilliant strategy of leaving Islamic breadcrumbs around his family home during visits. He would strategically place his Quran on the coffee table, leave his prayer rug visible in his old bedroom, or casually mention Islamic practices in conversation, waiting to see if his parents would connect the dots. This gradual revelation became comedy gold because it perfectly captured the universal fear of disappointing loved ones while staying true to personal convictions. But how did his parents ultimately react when they realized their Christian son had become a Muslim comedian? The stage name Preacher wasn't chosen randomly. It represented Moss's understanding that comedy could be a form of ministry, a way to deliver important messages through laughter rather than sermons. His conversion to Islam didn't diminish his sense of spiritual calling. It transformed it. He realized that making people laugh while educating them about faith, tolerance, and human understanding was its own form of religious service. The name Preacher also allowed him to maintain his connection to his Christian roots while embracing his Islamic identity, showing audiences that spiritual growth doesn't require abandoning one's past. But how did this unique approach to comedy as ministry set him apart from other performers in the increasingly competitive stand-up world? In the post-9/11 world, Preacher Moss found his true calling as a founding member of the Allah Made Me Funny comedy tour. This groundbreaking initiative brought together Muslim comedians to challenge stereotypes, build bridges, and prove that faith and humor weren't mutually exclusive. For Moss, this wasn't just entertainment. It was Islamic outreach disguised as comedy shows. Every laugh was a small victory against prejudice. Every joke was a humanizing moment that helped audiences see Muslims as complex, funny, relatable people rather than media stereotypes. The tour performed in churches, synagogues, comedy clubs, and college campuses, creating conversations that traditional interfaith dialogue couldn't achieve. But what made these comedy shows so effective at changing hearts and minds when serious discussions often failed? Preacher Moss developed a unique Islamic approach to comedy that respected religious principles while maintaining comedic edge. He studied Islamic teachings about humor, learning that the Prophet Muhammad appreciated appropriate jokes and that laughter could be an act of worship when used to bring joy and relief to others. His comedy became carefully crafted to avoid the sins of the tongue, while still being genuinely funny and thought-provoking. He proved that Islamic guidelines didn't limit comedic creativity. They channeled it toward more meaningful purposes. His approach influenced an entire generation of Muslim comedians who saw that they didn't have to choose between faith and funny. But how did this theologically informed approach to comedy actually improve his material, rather than limiting it? Beyond the stage, Preacher Moss pursued a journalism degree from Marquette University and took a job teaching emotionally disturbed children, demonstrating that his commitment to service extended far beyond entertainment. His educational background and teaching experience informed his comedy, giving him insights into human psychology, communication, and the power of storytelling to transform lives. He understood that effective comedy, like effective teaching, required empathy, timing, and the ability to make complex ideas accessible to diverse audiences. His classroom experience taught him that humor could reach students that traditional methods couldn't touch, just as his comedy could reach audiences that conventional religious outreach couldn't engage. But how did his dual role as educator and entertainer create a unique platform for Islamic advocacy? As a Black Muslim comedian, Preacher Moss navigated multiple identities that mainstream America often viewed as contradictory. His comedy explored the intersections of race, religion, and humor, showing audiences that people could be more complex than any single category. He addressed the unique challenges of being Black in America, Muslim in a post-9/11 world, and funny in an industry that often stereotyped minority performers. His success proved that authentic representation was not only possible, but powerful, inspiring other comedians to embrace their full identities rather than limiting themselves to what mainstream audiences expected. Through humor, he made the complex simple and the foreign familiar. But what specific comedy techniques did he use to help audiences understand experiences so different from their own? Preacher Moss's story became so compelling that it was featured in documentaries like Preacher Moss, Hilarious and Halal, which explored his journey as both a Black and Muslim comedian. These films showcased his ability to use comedy to dispel stereotypes, provoke thought, and unite people across cultures. Unlike many performers who changed their message for different audiences, Moss maintained his authentic voice whether performing in comedy clubs, religious venues, or documentary interviews. His consistency proved that audiences respected honesty more than pandering, and that the most powerful comedy comes from genuine personal experience rather than manufactured personas. But how did his documentary appearances expand his influence beyond traditional comedy audiences? Today, Preacher Moss continues to prove that comedy can be both hilarious and meaningful, that entertainment can serve spiritual purposes, and that faith can enhance rather than limit artistic expression. His journey from Christian military academy student to Muslim comedy pioneer demonstrates that authentic spiritual transformation often leads to more powerful art, not less. Through his example, countless Muslim comedians have found the courage to embrace their faith publicly, while pursuing their comedic dreams. He showed the world that Muslims aren't a monolithic group without humor, but diverse people with the same capacity for joy, self-reflection, and laughter as anyone else. But what does his continuing success teach us about the role of faith-based entertainment in building understanding across cultural divides? Preacher Moss's greatest joke turned out to be the truth, that finding Islam didn't end his comedy career. It gave it deeper meaning. His conversion story proves that the most profound changes in life often come not from dramatic external events, but from internal spiritual awakenings that redefine our understanding of purpose. His success demonstrates that authenticity is the ultimate comedic currency, that audiences will follow performers anywhere as long as they're being genuine about the journey. Through laughter, he transformed his personal religious conversion into a universal story about courage, growth, and the power of staying true to your convictions even when the world expects you to be someone else. The young military academy student who questioned everything in Sunday school became the Muslim comedian who answers everything with humor and heart. Preacher Moss's journey from Bryant to preacher, from Christian to Muslim, from questioning teenager to confident comedian, shows that the best art comes from the deepest personal truth. His story reminds us that conversion isn't just about changing religions, it's about finding the courage to become who you're truly meant to be, regardless of what others expect. Through his comedy, millions have learned that faith and laughter aren't opposites. They're partners in the ongoing human quest to find meaning, connection, and joy in an often confusing world. His legacy proves that sometimes the best way to preach is simply to make people laugh, while showing them something beautiful about the human experience under divine guidance.